Hi, my name is Janet Skinner. Sometimes in life we need a purpose to continue. And back in the early 1990s, I was looking for a reason to live, if you like. Just happened by accident one day that I saw that Geebung station, which is in Queensland, was going to be demolished and replaced. So I decided to paint it. And during the 1990s, I painted 104 railway scenes, and that kept me going. As I sat on the platform and railway sidings, old people would come over and speak to me and tell me about life in the good old days. These were elderly people. It transpired that many of them were born in the early 1900s. I wrote down their names and phone numbers, and I went back and interviewed them. There's a series of some 35 railway tapes that I'm making of the interviews that I recorded in New South Wales and Queensland. I'm not a journalist. I've got no background training in interviewing, and I really hope you enjoy these films. I hope they bring laughter to many and insight into what life used to be like. And please bear with me. I had fun doing them, and I hope you have fun listening to them. Thank you so much. Talking to now to Stan Cuthbert, and we're in the Ipswich workshop.
That's right. I was a product manager for the area that was selected, if you like, to overhaul the Beyer Garratt.
Right.
And I guess that everybody, as I was saying, had a different perspective. For mine, it was probably it was more of a I think the last really big project that Ipswich workshops were going to undertake of that type, as it stood today, you know. And from that, it became a very important project for everybody who was associated with it, because it was really, Ipswich workshops were there putting on some sort of a, if you like, making some sort of a statement about what they could do, because it wasn't very, what we had to do in a lot of ways wasn't very practical. It was a difficult job where there weren't many people left who really had a lot of expertise. You know, all of us had a little bit, you know, from when we were younger. And so there were a lot of people who were thrown into it who didn't know anything about steam locos. So what emerged out of it was, I suppose, we had railway staff who'd been there a long time, and some who'd been only there a short time, by railway standards. I don't know how long had you been in the railway, Lynn, at that stage? 5 years. And so what I saw happen was a culture developed with that group of people who worked on the Garratt, and a spirit, I guess, where the difficult jobs really, lots of times when you do jobs that aren't easily done, the difficult jobs became a bit of a challenge to sort of be overcome. So, I know Len, he had, one of his jobs was to fit all of the steam pipe that ran from the front of the engine to the back. And it was a massive exercise just on its own, you know, because you had to get all the pipes bent to the right angles, and then it had to be all bolted up, and you had to make sure it all sealed. And the flanges were rusted, and we had to get new flanges, and we didn't know what we were doing half the time. and just making sure that part of it was right was pretty important. And so I guess each little section, the pistons, the cylinders, we had to get a boring machine from Zigzag Railways, and they found that rusting in the yard. We got that. We had to virtually overhaul that machine, make new mandrels and all the rest of it, just to turn the cylinders out, just to do that. And so you'd strike a problem maybe on the pistons, and you'd go down and you'd talk to someone like, say, Perce Perrott down in the machine shop, and he'd say, well, look, we need a valve piston head, so we'll turn it out of an old wheel or whatever. And
incredible, isn't it?
It is what they did. And so there was a lot of there always had to I guess to solve any problem, there's always got to be an idea. And it was surprising where you found the idea, to get around it. So I guess everybody, had a considerable
put in their part.
Part to play.
So when did the project start? Can you remember?
Yeah, it started at Red Bank workshops, and it was a couple of about a month to 6 weeks before we had our open day here, and that was in about 1993, September 93, somewhere around there was the open day, or 94, just correct. I just have to check that. But what happened was we had the Beyer Garratt, we dismantled it at Red Bank, sent a couple of guys down there, and they cut all the bolts and got it ready so that it could be taken apart, and then Lindsay Cooper arranged with Nicholson's to come in with their transport trucks and their cranes, and we had to do the finishing, if you like, of dismantling it down there while they lifted the different parts onto the truck.
Why wasn't it dismantled here then?
Because it was at Red Bank Workshop stored as a museum piece.
Oh, right.
So it was laying there rusting. We went down, we had a look at it and went over it, and the longer I looked at it, the more I thought, Christ, I don't really know whether we really want to have a go at this.
Didn't realise that.
No, and
so how long had it been there in mothballs?
It had been there since around about 1959.
Oh goodness!
So it had lain there rusting virtually in the open. So it got here. We brought it up on 3 semi-trailers, came into the bottom yard, and we had to lift it off and put it back on the rails and connect it to tow it in. And it was sort of late. It was either the Thursday or the Friday before this open day. So we brought it up from the yard and brought it in, and it was sitting there when open day came round, and of course then we had the problems of things like asbestos, which we had to sort of get special crews to remove all the asbestos, and then we had to sandblast all of the different parts. And most of them, when we shot blasted them, a lot of them virtually flew to pieces, didn't they? Really, some of them were that rusty, So we had to manufacture a lot of new castings and cast iron castings, and the elements we had to the tubes we got from Japan, the boiler tubes. We brought them in from Japan. And we had to get boilermakers here, and they made all the elements from old drawings, and so that was, I guess we sat down and we drew up a schedule. It always seemed to change as we went, because it was bigger than we ever thought it was, but we laid out a schedule, and we ordered. We set out a priority for the orders, the castings from Red Bank, or the tubes, for example, from Japan, the sourcing of we did a deal with Zigzag that if we repaired their boring machine, which had come from here originally, or when we virtually the steam area closed down, we did a deal with them that we would share that if we did it up. So I think they come out in the better end of the deal. But anyway, it's now used between us, and any boring of cylinders that needs to be done, we've got that there, But I suppose, from my point of view, I can remember being in the schoolyard over here at St Mary's and seeing it go across the bridge when they came out, and they didn't have them down here because they all went up north, but they always looked special. They had a good look about them, and I suppose there were the bloody Garratt. There was the Garratt, and then there was the Canberra Jets, and that's a long time ago. For me anyway, it was 1950. And you'd go out in the schoolyard and you'd see, every so many months you'd see a Garratt come across. And it'd nearly take up the town bridge when it come across. It seemed that big,
Were they always that colour? Or?
Yeah, they were maroon, and they were really always painted, that they had always had those clear yellow lines that run down the side, and they always looked a picture. Right. And I didn't want to get into the railway those days. I hadn't even thought about it. When I came here, I was here about 2 weeks, and I went home and I said to Gran that I didn't want to be a fitter. I wanted to go back to school, and she didn't have much dough, so she sort of said, start. So I started, and I've never really been sorry,
So it must have been a tearful day for you when the Garratt actually got going then, wasn't it?
Well, it was I don't know whether it was a tearful day. I think it was a happy day, because I think everybody...
Sad, I mean nostalgic.
Well, it was nostalgic, I suppose, in the fact that, not doing it, but in the fact that when it was finished, I guess all the little things that came up, you sort of remembered a lot of the people who worked on it. And I'm talking about over the years, for someone who's been here a long time. So from that point of view, it was sort of special. But I think the best part, was the reaction of everybody who worked on it. Everybody felt, and I know Len and them, they went for runs up to Lowood on it and trials, and I think everybody felt that they'd achieved something. Which I suppose, which would stand, which would sort of, if you like, symbolise,
it all pulled together.
Yeah, because it really was a unique experience. I think there were a lot of friendships there that were cemented as well during the job, and I mean, I don't know how many times Parky and I had a blue over it, because I'd bring Parky, and Parky'd have his version of how he wanted things to happen, and he had his problems and I had mine. I was saying, well, look, we've got to get this finished by a certain day, and all those sort of things, So yeah, it was. I guess you could say it was a family situation.
So Stan, how long in all did it take, the project?
It took went something like about 2.5 years, because it didn't finish till around about the March. Yeah.
So that was a big project, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a big project. Yeah. Parky always says the only one who didn't work on it's the guy outside in the statue. He's probably right. That's one of Parky's quotes. You can use that.
I might have to catch up with him.
Yeah, I think you really do need to talk to him.
Okay then, Stan. Can we move on to Len now? Is that all right?
Yes, I'm.
Okay, now talking to Len. How do you say your
Wykes.
Wykes. That's an unusual name for me, Len. Then you're a fitter working at Red Bank at the moment, and you had a lot to do with the restoration of the Garratt.
Yes.
Okay. Make my job easy for me, please.
I was in, as was previously, I was involved with the steam pipe. Went from to join the two water tanks, or the main water pipe to feed the two water tanks to the engine, to the front of the engine.
Yeah.
The old one was removed, and it was completely shot. It was all rusted out and everything, and it was like an 8-inch, 10-inch pipe, about 1/4 inch steel. So we had to get the drawings, sent the drawings away to a company that could bend the pipes.
Where would you have got the drawings from? Sorry,
Out of our archives here.
Oh.
They still had the drawings here in the archives now. Sent it to the company, and they bent the ones that had to be bent. The ones that were just straight, we had to cut the flanges off the old ones, machine them up best we could, file them up, whatever, fill them, and then weld them to the new pipes. But because time and that, the pipes had changed from a imperial size to a metric size, so we had to have metric pipe, the metric size pipe, which was only a couple of mil difference, but there was a difference. And then to fit them in position, we had to weld the flanges, bolt the flanges together with the pipes in position, and get up and tack weld the pipes to the flanges, remove the pipes out of the Garratt, and then weld them completely inside and out. So in the process, it took you there was two of us doing it. It took us about a couple of days for each pipe just to set it up, make sure, and then to fit it back in, you have to go in, because you've heated up, it warps all the flanges, so you file and the flanges flat again. And that was my part of the project until we got to the end in the testing area, and was just doing mainly rectification, fitting types, putting it all together.
You were a specialist on one particular aspect of the job. You were either the motion man who put all the pistons and the slide bars and the crossheads together, or you were the guy who put all the elements in and did the smoke box, the firebox rather, and put the fire bars in, or you were the Westinghouse man who fitted the pumps and the pipes and that sort of stuff, and then there was another guy who fitted all the mounts.
So sort of much into everything, I suppose.
That's the point I was making. In those days, there was a bloke who was an expert in a particular field. So even though we could dig up people from that era, we got those people. They only had a
knowledge of one area.
A knowledge of one area, which was very helpful, but it still presented a lot of problems because they didn't necessarily know about all of the other areas. So it was the people who did the job had to virtually pick up those skills as they went, to be able to do that, which was a real challenge. Yeah.
So then had you worked on a steam locomotive before then?
No, coming out of the Air Force now.
Used to small.
So have you worked on anything since, or have you worked on any of the others, like the Aviation Corps or anything like that?
No, I never been on that one. No. I was on the Blue Baby for a couple of weeks, that's all.
Right. So that was different, wasn't it?
A little bit different, yes, thrown in the deep end. But it was good. It was interesting to do that type of work, because this day and age a fitter never does anything like piling flat surfaces anymore. You don't do that because you use a seal, but with this thing it was all metal to metal seal, and there was no error for judgment or anything. It had to be flat surface plate and a file.
All right then. Can you think of anything else I should ask you?
No, I don't think so. That was mainly my area of the job was good. As Ben say, you get an area, and that's usually where you're on that part of the job.
So how many people be working on, say, the Garratt in any one day, you reckon?
About a crew of 8 of us, I think.
Yeah, except as we got towards the end, it became bigger because we had coppersmiths and painters.
But that wasn't, say, that was only working on there, but there was, say, a couple of machinists, up in Toulon Gauge, another couple of machinists, blacksmiths.
And it wouldn't have been just before the completion that it looked anything like that, would it? It would have all been in parts.
That's right, it was all in bits and pieces. It was in 3 sections virtually.
Yes,
and it had to all be fitted together,
Yeah, you had to, all the road was just the filled up, and there was one down one end, the engine in the middle, and the other part up the other end. Different people working on different areas of it, and it never really came together till the end of it.
They even had to, they had to source the paint.
What did you say?
Yeah, it was a special colour, and the paint shop, I can't really even recall was it Tuscan? No, was it whatever the colour? It was no longer made, and we had to get a special. They had to, and because we put a 2-pack on it to make it last longer. We still got the original colours, to do it with. Yeah. So we got that information from Bob Christensen in the paint shop. Shouldn't mention his name, but we got it from the foreman of the paint shop. Yeah, because he worked on that.
Thank you for that, Lou.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Bennett.
Okay, Bob. And what was your capacity to do with the restoration of the Garratt?
Well, I came in and started to get involved with it after they'd completely stripped it down, and basically there was just 3 bare chassis, or 2 main bare chassis on stands that virtually had nothing in them, just shells. And I started there where they started to go to building it right up from scratch. And I was involved in a lot of the clean-up of the motion gear and the fitting of the fitted bolts in the chassis, where we had special adapters had to be fitted in before other parts could be put in. And it was very satisfying for me because I'd had an ex-Air Force background as well, and I'd never worked on steam engines. And
but Air Force background.
Yes, I'd been on the F-111s here for about 16 years, and I came to the railways about 1991. And I was asked to go over and help put the Garratt together, and I'd always travelled on the old steam trains back in the 60s when I was a young lad, and to be involved with it was very satisfying for me to have a part in it, because with all the aspects of putting all the wheels together, the white metal boxes, bearings on the wheels, and there was 2 sets of motion gear, which were, I think there was 16 wheels or something on it, and putting all the fittings in the chassis to take the wheels, to adapt the wheels in underneath.
So could you have been one of those people in the painting, do you reckon?
Oh, quite possibly. I doubt if you'd recognise me from that, but
I think the painting was finished. This was done before the painting was finished.
Yeah. Well, I was involved in it from the very start, on the building up only. I wasn't in the stripping of it, but all the sort of from one day to the next, I'd be sort of fitting at one end of it or the other end of it to wherever I was directed, and I just applied my fitting skills to, and I had to go back to basic fitting because there was, as Glenn was saying, metal to metal surfaces where you had a lot of filing, a lot of grinding, and you had to use the glue to get the surfaces mated properly so that steam wouldn't leak and water wouldn't leak and stuff like that. And as I say, from one day to the next, I was either on the boiler or on the wheels or in the chassis.
Did it seem like a never-ending job to you, or did you have other work too, or you was on this motor?
Well, I was on that full time at one part of the Garratt.
You have to appreciate how much work is involved, isn't it? Really,
a lot of work. Yeah. It's an enormous amount of work, and but to see it in the end going out.
What did it feel like on that day?
Very satisfying.
Was it?
Yeah, very satisfying.
I know there was an air of excitement when I came in to do that painting, because I came in several months before when it was just a heat. But I remember by the time I did this, it was 8th of March 95 I did this painting.
Yeah.
So it was almost completed. Yeah, and there was a certain buzz around it.
Yeah, it was. To see, like, from when I started, to see all the aspects of it going together too, it was very satisfying for me, because I'd never seen a steam engine as big as that. Like, I never understood the principles of the steam workings, which I learned during the process of the building of it. With the connection from the water tank through to the ejectors right down to the cylinders that drove it.
At that time, the management, was at an all-time low. It was the worst period for morale from a railway point of view for a work that workshops had ever been in. And we were the decision had been sort of made that we were going to relocate. And I guess this really helped restore, if you like, the pride of the people at Ipswich, because it sort of became an issue, a point to prove, if you like, that even though it was really tough, they could do it, and everybody, because it was so big, it involved everybody virtually in the workshops in one way or another, and so at the end of it, I think it lifted everybody. As you said, when you came here, there was that buzz around. I don't think when we started the job, too many people were that interested. They thought, well, hello, the people who were on it may have been, but the people around the shops weren't that particularly interested. It was just another, it was just another sort of job to be done. But as you said, that excitement grew, and everybody got behind it, and everybody realised, hey, this is something to do with Ipswich workshops and making a statement.
So who drove it on that first run, if you like? Who took it out for a test run, do you know?
I know they brought a couple of drivers over from town, one of them who was retiring, and he was given the honour of taking it out. But we had a driver here who was grounded, if you like, because of his health reasons. He couldn't drive on the main line, and that was Pat McGreevy, wasn't it? And Pat actually drove it up and down in the yard, and he was the first to do it. Matter of fact, when they tested the boiler, he lit the waste and put it on a shovel, and it was a big ceremony.
Is he still around today?
Yeah, he's still around North Ipswich area. He went away. He took an overseas trip after that. Yes, but he's still going. But it was he made up all the wicks, fitted all the gauge glasses. Did all the things that a driver used to do in the steam era. They always had a driver on site here who went around to the different gangs and set up all the gauge glasses and made sure everything was in line and put the wicks, made up the wicks and all that sort of stuff, so that the oil would drip just at the right, So he had that. Now that was something that a lot of people had forgot about, how to just to twist the wire the right way and put the woolen waste the right way and put it in. I think there's still drivers or people in the traffic area, operations area, who were firemen. Like I know my cousin, he's about 53 now. He was a fireman in the steam era. He started in 1959, and steam didn't go out till 69. So there are drivers from that period, or people who worked with the drivers with that sort of expertise, but it will be lost.
23 years now, what do you reckon?
Probably the people who are tied up in heritage projects, be they private or would still have. That would be passed on. Yeah, I think it'd still be there, but yeah. I think it'd still be there, but it'd be like it's not going to be easy to hold on to, because somewhere along the line you are going to lose some of it, and every time you hand over something to somebody else, and he's not trained in the system, if you like, of that era, you lose something. You lose a little bit of expertise, and understanding of exactly why it should be done that way, So, yeah.
Okay, and so where was it actually painted? Did you have to move it to paint it?
We moved it around the tracks and put it into the paint shop, up in the paint shop in the paint booth, and they painted it up there. But all of the touch-up work was done on the road where you sketched it. Yeah. So, sorry.
The anything else you can think of?
Well, generally overall, the time that I had on it was about, I think, 15 months when it was being built, and the aspects of the fitting that I did on it, and just seeing it going together, and the final test run that we did up to Murphy's Creek, and the run that we had on it was very satisfying.
What was that like? Was you on the footplate then, was you?
Well, I was. Yeah, I had a run up in the engine with the driver, and I was given a chance up there, and to see it in full operation was very satisfying from the fireman and the driver's point of view. For my age group, I guess I wasn't in the steam era, but I was a young lad then. But no, to see, like to spend the hours and hours of nights and the weekends and long hours that I did on the fitting of it, and seeing it all going together was a lot of hard work, but it was very satisfying. Yeah.
I was going to say, Bob, you know when we went, you went for a run up the country. We went for a run up the country, trial, and to look out look out from the carriage that we were, in, and see all the cars driving up along the country roads, and everybody stopping and looking, and the school kids, even the school kids, when you came into Rosewood, all of the school kids run over to the fence and they looked at it. They'd never seen anything like it, It was such, it just had something special about it, and it was a big thrill, I thought, just to see people on the side of the road with their cameras and taking their amateur movie sort of setups, and I thought that was a big thrill, I think, for anyone who was on the job.
It was a big thrill for me to see the motion in action at 50 miles an hour on the flats out near Lowood there. And when they were taking the curves, and you can see the curve and the whole train, and the steam and the smoke blowing and the motion going at both ends, really rapid. And
saying I did that, or
I was a part of that for 18 months, and it was a lot of work, but very satisfying to see it all in action when it was finished. But no, it's you get back to basic fitting with it, and it's an era, I think, that you can appreciate just how much the men of yesterday put a lot of work in. Like a lot of the modern things that I've worked with today in the Air Force and systems and that are all very cut and dry.
In those days, when I started, the guys who worked on the motion, they had a whole sort of bay, if you like, where they did all the motion gear, and they polished it up with, polished it with their sandpaper and their emery paper rather, and their files, and all that sort of thing. Those guys, they were so proud of everything. They wore ties. They had a tie on underneath their dust coat. They wore a dust coat and a tie, and they were somebody. They worked on the motion gear. That's how much pride they had in that time, in that era. It was, they're dressed like they worked at Bayer's, which was gone too.
I appreciate the effort they had to put in those. Just doing one train, and they had a lot of them.
Okay, we're now talking to Bill
Langsdale.
And Bill, would you like to tell me a little bit how you was involved with the restoration of the Garratt?
Well, for many years I've been interested in steam engines. I'm a learner from the railway. The railway taught me about steam engines, but I've been very interested in them for many years prior to joining the railway. I joined the railway in 1981, 1981. In 1981, and I then became very friendly with a man who's since left the railway by the name of Ronald Palmer. And Ronnie Palmer taught me a lot about compressors and equipment which is used on steam engines. And then when he left, I was on my own for a while, and I had to sort of fend for myself, and it's been a very big learning curve, and I've been learning ever since. There's still new jobs that which I haven't come across, which I'm quite prepared to have a go at if need be attractive. But I've tried to specialise in all the stuff involved in the brakes, as regards the brake cylinders, the brake control equipment, and all the plumbing and the valves, valves which are associated with the brakes. I think I'd possibly be one of the last people in the railway that do the compressors, overhaul the compressors, and the turbo generators is another piece of equipment which I don't think too many people have done very much. That are left in the railway now can do, so I do those. On the Beyer Garratt in particular, there's one piece of equipment there called the Hadfield Power Reverser, which was a real headache.
Can you go that slowly? What is it called again?
Hadfield,
How do you spell that?
Hadfield,
Hadfield, yeah.
Power Reverser.
Right.
It was something that I'd never had in my wildest dreams experienced before, and had to start right from scratch and completely recondition that and get it going, and it's been going quite successfully ever since. The power-operated fire doors, that was another piece of my gear which I'd never experienced before. It was something totally new.
And there was nobody to show you how to do it, I suppose. You had
No,
to work it out yourself.
we had to work it out. Well, I had to work it out myself. One fella who since retired, he pulled one part to pieces, and I hadn't to do it at that time, and I had to put the whole thing back together again after it had been fully reconditioned, all the parts remade. The fire door assembly was virtually brand spanking new, every component of it. It was worn so far that we couldn't repair it.
Did you have sleepless nights on how you was going to put it back together, or wasn't it that bad?
Oh, I had to think about it a fair bit. A little bit of trial and error, and we had a few errors that we had to correct and fix and so forth, but eventually it turned out very well, and it functioned without any problems.
Because I know initially when I saw it, it was just literally in a million pieces, wasn't it?
Oh yes, my word, yeah. Neil and his crew completely dismantled it, all the major components and so forth, and then the smaller parts which I had were sent down to my shop, and we pulled them down, and I pulled it down and repaired it there. And there was a hell of a lot of work carried out by machine shop for it, because so many of the parts were, well, you can't just go and buy them off the shelf, they're no longer available, they had to be made. And very luckily we had some patterns, but not all of them. And we had to get some patterns made. I think the pattern makers and machinists did an excellent job. We had very, very little problems as regards that side of it.
That's great. So, the Westinghouse pump, is that what you deal with, is it?
Westinghouse compressor, yes, that's right, or pump if you prefer to call it that.
Well, it's only what I've heard it to be.
It's right, on the Garratt, it's a special one, it's called a cross compound, it's a big one, it's very heavy, it's about 800-900 kilograms.
So what does that actually do? I've always been fascinated trying to particularly paint that particular area of the steam loco.
Yeah.
I always find it intricate.
Well,
what does that actually do?
It uses steam to operate a compressor to provide enough air to operate all the pneumatic services throughout the loco and the train. It provides all the air for the brakes on the train, it provides air for the ash pan, it provides air for the power-operated doors, on the fire doors, that is. I think that's the main functions of it.
And how long was you working on it, Bill? The whole thing, from the start to the finish type of thing?
I think it was about 18 months, wasn't it? 18 months. Yeah. Yeah, it was a pretty intense program. We were onto it.
Okay, thank you for that.
No problem at all.
Okay. Okay, now we're talking to Neil Linnehan. Okay, Neil, thank you for giving me this interview.
Thank you.
Try and make it a little bit easy for me. Just tell me how you were involved in the restoration of Garratt.
Well, I came back to Ipswich here to be involved in the Blue Baby. We spent about 7 months doing it, and then the word went out we're going to do the Garratt. So in the meantime, as soon as the Blue Baby was finished, the Garratt was brought out of Redbank Museum, and it was placed here on display for the open day. And then straight after that, we all got into a team of us and started to strip it right down.
Do you remember what year the open day was? Do you remember what
It was about September 93.
Right.
Yeah. So the Garratt was commenced in, say, September 93, and it was put back into service again in April 95. We spent about 18 months on it, but it wasn't what you'd call a continuous 18 months, probably about 15, and there was other jobs fitting in between. So it was just a total mess. From sitting in the museum for 20 odd years, it just, nature took over again. So a lot of that was totally rebuilt, like the cab, all new, and ash pan, the boiler had extensive repairs, the firebox, a lot of it taken out, replaced, hundreds of stays, wall stays and all that. The boiler makers had one very big job on that, and the engine was gone right through. Everything was done that had to be done. It was, I'd say it even got more done than it would have got on an overhaul in days of steam. because we took it right down to the very last piece.
Now, what is your job? What are you turning
Fitter, fitter, yeah. I started the railway in October 1950 and spent about, I suppose, about 8 or 9 years on steam, and went to the Westinghouse freight shop. And then in 65 I went to Redbank, worked about 27 years on diesels and came back here in 92 for the Blue Baby. So from then on I spent 5 years on steam continuous, and I'll probably do so until I retire in 3 years' time.
And what are you working on at the moment?
Currently we've been doing a front end overhaul on the Blue Baby. Board the cylinders and new pistons and rings, valves and so on. And it's ready to start again now, so we have to take it for a trial run probably tomorrow or Monday, and then it'll be running for the exhibition along with the Brown bomber, the C-17.
What about the BB-18 quarter, is that?
It's underway, but it's had to take a bit of a backstage.
Right.
When another one comes up, it slides back.
Yeah.
But it's proposed to be back in service between December this year and March next year. That's been an enormous job too.
Do you remember sort of working as a team and that, working on the Garratt?
Yeah, well, Bill and myself and all the other blokes, we spent 6 weeks, not 6 weeks, pulling it apart. And everything, you couldn't take it apart easily. It was all the oxy torch.
You took it to part at Redbank, didn't you?
No, it was dismantled at Redbank and brought up in sections. And then it was, after that, each section was totally dismantled here.
Everything was welded up.
Yeah, well, for being in the museum, everything had been welded for safety, which meant it wasn't a normal method of undoing, like everything was oxy torch. And when you do that, it means you've got to replace everything.
Did you have to label everything when you took it off? I mean, it must be enormous.
Everything had to be identified, yeah. Like you knew roughly where everything went, but just to be dead sure, so that other people that followed you, they knew exactly where it went. It's the best way.
All stored in racks, is it, or in a pile on the ground, or how does
Well,
it
as
work?
Bill said before, it was in thousands of pieces everywhere.
Yeah, I can remember seeing it like that.
And we often wondered, like Parky said, will we ever get it together?
Yeah. Did you have your doubts?
We didn't have our doubts. We didn't know how long it was going to take. It's one of the biggest undertakings we've ever done. And actually, I was proud to be a part of the team. We had a good team. They all worked well together. Everybody knew what they had to do and just got into it.
Did you have sort of conferences to talk about how to fix a certain part, work it out between you, or
Well, that went on quite a bit.
Yeah.
And also, there wasn't a rack to take parts off. Anything you wanted, it had to be made. Now, saying you can't find one, make one. That's we had to do a lot. But it was a real challenge, and it worked out good. And it's running exceptionally well. We had a little mishap recently, but that's just normal. But apart from that, it's still going good.
Were any parts so badly rusted or that you didn't really know what they were when you looked at them? Or?
No, they were recognisable. Just badly corroded. There's a lot of new equipment went into it.
How did you feel on the day when it was finished?
Proud, very proud, yeah. Yeah, it was good to see it going, because from working at Redbank for all those years, every day I went to work, I went past it, every day of my life. And then I never ever dreamt that thing would be running and I'd be part of the team that got it going. And then to be involved like that is something, you've got to experience it to know what it's like.
Do you think there's any other steam locos that are like that they'll restore, you reckon? Or,
Well, everyone we've worked on, they're like your kids. You don't like to see them get anything go wrong with them. As soon as something happens, think, what have they done to it? The drivers. But we try to keep them going as good as we can, and we're lucky that the railway department has placed so much interest in it. They've got the facilities and the expertise and the machinery, so a lot of, like New South Wales Railways, they don't put much emphasis in it at all. We're fortunate that we've got even like our chief executive, Vince O'Rourke, he is a steam enthusiast, and without him I think we wouldn't have done as well as we did. He put a lot of interest into it, and he wanted it done, and he was another very proud man the day it ran. Even though he didn't work on it, he was the man behind it all. And he can't get in the cab quick enough. He likes to put a bit of coal on the fire and have a drive too.
I've never been in front of the Garratt, but I'd love to have a ride in the front of that one day.
Well,
most of the others I have, not the Garratt.
Yeah, well,
just missed out somewhere.
If we could work it, but we knew when it was going to be test run around here, we could probably let you know.
Thanks very much. Anything else, Neil?
Well, it's something that, it's cost a lot of money to do, but it's something that will be there for a long, long time. The kids of today, this is the only chance they see to have the opportunity to see a thing like it going. Like in my day, it was, well, you didn't have diesel, you didn't have electric trains, it was all steam. When you took it, the sun comes up, the sun comes down, steam will be there the same, it'll be there forever, but it wasn't to be so. Well, now, you can see these things run along. We see what we saw as a kid, and the kids of today, they're amazed, you know. But I'm glad it's going. It's something you can say when you retire, right, I was part of it. You can look back to be proud of it.
One thing that was on the test, if you remember, was the weighing.
Yeah.
What was that?
To get
The weighing. They had to buy special equipment in and get special people to help to weigh it.
they don't want to know the exact weight of things and what the correct loading on each wheel so that the balance of the whole engine is correct. So you can have too much load on a couple of wheels and that's excessive on the track. So the idea of weighing is to balance the load on the whole engine equally. A lot of people say, what do you want to weigh it for? We don't do it for that at all. We weigh it to get the correct balance. And if you haven't got the right balance, you can get wheel slip because some wheels don't have enough pressure on them, they're not exerting enough on the track and your wheels will slip. Yeah. So that's the main reason for doing it. It's a technical device, not just to know how heavy it is.
Well, thank you very much for that,
Yeah,
Neil.
right.
Thank you. Just going back, Neil, I understand you were the second person to drive the Garratt?
Yeah, I was, yeah. The first man was Patrick McManus. He was our driver, steam driver. We lit it up, say, not long after dinner, and about 3:30 that particular afternoon. I can't remember the exact date now, but Pat moved it under steam, and then we ran it for a little bit, and he said, Neil, would you like a drive? I said, would I ever? So that was how it all happened. Yeah.
Right.
So Pat and I were the first two to move that engine.
Right. That must have been a thrilling experience,
Well,
wasn't
see,
it?
I've got my steam driver's ticket also, but through the machinery department of Queensland now. That enabled me to work with Pat the way I did, or the way I did.
Mm-hmm.
He's now retired. He retired about 3 months after the Garratt was put back in service. And that was his ambition, to be here and see it run. He got his wish. Yeah. So he's retired a happy man.
Great. Thanks for that, Neil.
Mm.